welcome to Eating Enlightenment. I'm here with Sophia's son. Hey, Sophia.
Hey, Jared.
I am so happy you're here right now and that we're going to be able to talk about your intuitive eating journey and all that you've been through.
Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity.
Sweet. So I'm going to share a picture. It's from the beginning of your journey. Can you see this?
A photo of me when I was 17 years old. Yeah, I can see it.
That's you on the left. And you had written something pretty powerful. You had said, sorry to cover this up real quick. The girl on the left birthed the girl on the right. This is why you're eternally grateful for the years of suffering with self-harm, depression, and eating disorders. The caterpillar goes into the darkness and transforms into the butterfly. We know this. If you're struggling with food, body, depression, anxiety, or physical illness, remember there is always a light waiting for you on the other side. Wow.
Yeah, you literally struck a chord. I was like, wow, I didn't think I'd be affected by that. Sometimes my experience of being depressed and overweight as a teenager feels so distant that I feel kind of disconnected from that part of myself. So, but when you just read that and I saw the photo, it really I felt it more internally.
What did you feel?
Just emotion for that process that I went through.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So much. That's an incredible transformation. So who was this girl on the left?
Yeah, that's a great place to start. So I'll just give you a background. I'll just give you a background of my story.
Yeah.
Kind of my story with eating disorders and when it all began. So my eating disorder started at age 7, which is so young to have an eating disorder. But I was really empathic as a little girl, very sensitive, and as a little girl, I had psychic abilities, was very intuitive, and I went into school, the school system, and as an empath, I didn't have the proper defenses as a 7-year-old to really protect myself and create energetic boundaries. And so I think food became a safety for me at that time. I think food also represented a nourishing relationship to my mother, which I really needed at that time. And so I started, overeating at age 7. And that that lasted from kindergarten, age 7, till I was 17. It's just emotional eating, binge eating, using food to soothe my emotions. And at age 17, I weighed almost 270 pounds, or I weighed 270 pounds. Health issues. I was always in pain physically because.
Can you see that?
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, that was me at my heaviest weight. Yeah, it wasn't fun being in that body. It was uncomfortable.
Yeah. Go on. So this is you around age 17.
7.
And
so 10 years of using food to cope with life.
Did you start to diet when did you start to diet?
Oh, well, that's I can weave into that, but
sure.
When I was 17, I remember this really critical point. So I had been binge eating and overeating for so many years, and for me, I think there was a way in which I ate to create a protective layer around myself. And when I was 17, I remember my mom coming into my bedroom and just saying how she was concerned because she felt like she had this beautiful daughter and she couldn't really, she felt like she was losing me through my physical, through the density that I had put on through that weight. And so she was just really concerned. And so we had a conversation. She suggested that I go to a weight loss camp. And I, for some reason, was on board. My mom had tried a lot of things like therapy and, dietitians, all those kinds of things, but those things never really stuck. But I was open to this camp for some reason at age 17. I think I really was ready to have a change because I was about to get ready to go off to college, and I just, yeah, I was in physical pain. Just even walking from like the parking lot of my high school to the high school itself was causing me pain. So it started to really affect like my mobility and everything too. So I went to this weight loss camp for only a month. But at the weight loss camp, I had so much fun and met so many great people. And I lost like 14 pounds at the camp. And it kind of inspired the beginning of the journey because um, it was like when I got home from this camp, everyone was like, "Oh, everyone could notice, even just 14 pounds." They were like, "You look so good," and they were really encouraging. And I think that really was a big part of it for me was like the positive feedback because I had kind of felt a lot of negativity towards myself, especially like middle school as an overweight teenager. Like you get teased a lot, and I definitely went through like a dark period at that age and was teased. So I think the positive reinforcement just really helped me. And I kind of just took it from there. And then I ended up losing 140 pounds from like age 17 to my first year in college. In like a year and a half, I lost 140 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
What's coming up for me right now is this weight loss camp was a really positive experience for you.
Yeah.
Was it promoting intuitive eating?
Yeah, so that's the funny part, which we can totally discuss. So, no, I did not find intuitive eating until years after, like 9 years after my weight loss journey. Because at this weight loss camp, it wasn't so much that I learned values of how to really nourish myself there. It was more about their program was all about like calorie restriction, and it was basically eating 1,200 calories a day or less, and 12 grams of fat or day or less. It was like this specific thing. And I remember I had a food journal, and I remember, yeah, it wasn't really focused on like food as medicine. I remember thinking I could eat things like gummy bears because they had no like I don't know, they had like no fat or something. So I was like, oh, I can eat gummy bears still and lose weight. And I totally did. Like I was able to eat all these funny things like through my weight loss as long as I kept the calories and fat to like a specific number. But it wasn't until years after my weight loss that I actually moved into intuitive eating and like took more of a holistic approach.
Interesting. Yeah, I didn't realize that. What made you try intuitive eating if you had, seen all these great results from a more traditional weight loss perspective?
Well, so I going into college, I stuck with that like 1,200 calorie, 12 gram of fat thing. But then once I got into college, I got really into fitness and really into nutrition. And so I kind of moved into just an obsession with like all the latest fads of like what was the best way to eat for being skinny. So I kind of feel in college that I went in some way the opposite extreme. I sometimes consider my college years slightly anorexic because I worked out like 4 hours a day and ate tiny amounts of food. I ate no carbs, kind of on like that low carb kick. So I went from like one extreme to the next, to the next, to the next. Um, to it's like I guess I want to say that I went from one extreme to the next, but then that went on for years. So I through my weight loss journey, I never actually really connected back to my body until about 5 years ago, and that's when I moved into intuitive eating. And I can totally tell you how that happened.
We'll dive into it in just a tiny bit. I just want to clarify when you were going through in college, the ups and downs. Would you binge after you went through a trend, or was the weight cycling happening still?
Yeah, no. So my weight loss, which was great, because I know a lot of people lose that much weight and gain it back. No, I was consistent. I actually just kept losing weight and becoming more fit and active. Um, However, yeah, in college, I remember I still had binge eating episodes. I remember me and my friend my best friend in college, we would always be at the gym together, always kind of eating our healthy ways. But then we would have like these big binge cycles together.
Was there any shame around that? Oftentimes it's done alone. It's kind of
Oh,
interesting.
yeah. Well, actually, I think we both, yeah, experienced shame, but in a way because we did it together a lot of the times. Maybe that took away some of the shame. I think I can talk to you a little bit more about like the end of right before I moved into intuitive eating. After
Sure.
that, so like from college, I had some binge eating, but then there was a few years where binge eating completely disappeared from my life, and it was really empowering. And I was, I was still in kind of a restrictive lifestyle at that point, but I felt um, so good within myself because I had stopped binge eating. So, but then fast forward to I actually moved to Hawaii about 4, maybe 5 years ago. And when I moved to Hawaii, it had been like from age 17 to age 25 of like a lot of restriction. And I was a nanny at the time there. And I remember one day so specifically, like I think that in Hawaii as a nanny, I kind of had a tendency, and this is so common for women who overeat, of like being a caretaker and over caring for others and not caring for themselves. And then they need some way to care for themselves. And if they haven't figured out how to do it for themselves, they go to food. So I was living in Hawaii and I ended up um, I was sitting in the car just feeling super depleted, and I looked over and there was all these snacks that I had not allowed myself to eat in like 9 years, like all these treats and things that I just restricted for so long. And so I explored like what would it be like to eat this kind of food again. And it backfired. I think it was like so much restriction just like backfired into like I went out of control, and I had like a good 6 month binge episode of just binge eating. And this was right before, this was kind of like the critical, like last experience or last moment before I moved into intuitive eating, which it'll make sense.
Yeah. Did this moment itself, was that moment itself the reason that you moved into intuitive eating
The binge eating?
with the candy in Hawaii?
Yeah. So basically, how I felt was that um, for so many years I had been like on such restrictive diets. Like I had not eaten practically any carbohydrates for years. I had lost my menstrual cycle. Like all I cared about after my weight loss journey was being thin. And so um, I kind of realized one day I had like this awakening moment. I remember I was like sitting in my bedroom and like just kind of contemplating things within myself. And I was like, I no longer want to, I no longer want to like control you anymore. And like, I no longer want to, yeah, like have rules around food. I just wanted to let it all go. And that was an experience where like I didn't know what that was going to look like. And I think intuitive eating was a journey. Like it didn't happen overnight. So we can talk more about how like the progression of my intuitive eating journey.
That's what I'm curious about as well. Because, if you lose 100 pounds using a restrictive diet, it seems like you would stick to that. Or, you know, but then this intuitive eating thing is the opposite way. Were you feeling incredibly frustrated with the different the restriction and food controls?
Yeah, the food control, and just like instead of listening to my body, I was always listening to my head or like listening to doctors or listening to the internet, like how I should eat to be a certain way. And I realized that I had never actually listened to myself or like listened to, yeah, my body's wisdom to guide me. And I found that there were certain moments or certain days where I did that. And those days were so much more freeing because I wasn't focused as much on food. I just kind of was connected to myself and would eat from that place. And so I think it was just like this realization that like having so much control around food was, yeah, like taking over my life in my mind and limiting my experience and causing that like backfire, because I think when we restrict ourselves or say no to certain things for so long, eventually there's like this like part of our psyche that wants to rebel against that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
How did you, so interesting question that comes up for me is you must be asked about weight loss, having gone through your own personal journey. And intuitive eating is kind of not against weight loss, but it certainly says put weight loss on the back burner. Focus on tuning in first.
Yeah.
I'm curious if someone approaches you and says, "Hey, I'm overweight. What should I do?" How do you have that conversation, considering your background when you lost weight was dieting?
Yeah. I think the most important thing about intuitive eating to me and how I come about intuitive eating is building such a strong relationship to yourself. It's like intuition to me is like my own intuition. So listening to the deepest parts of my psyche or my psychology and my body. And so I feel like intuitive eating could be a um, really helpful and supportive way to begin the journey, because in a way it's like I had to go through so much to land at intuitive eating, and intuitive eating is the only thing that I think is really sustainable for like a lifelong relationship with food that's healthy. So I think it's a great place to start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Real quick before we kind of start talking about maybe some of your cats, um, but
That's
yeah. Oh, I had a question, but I'm blanking on it.
okay.
Something about, you did not hear about intuitive eating. You did not read a book. It
No.
seems like just by listening to your body,
Yeah.
you kind of discovered this on your own. What was that like? Was
Yeah.
this journaling or, yeah, how was that like?
No, it wasn't journaling. It was like trial and error. I felt like I had to really, like, at first it was letting go of all the food rules and all the diets and all the things. And then it was actually, speaking of earlier, you said, did you ever gain any weight back? So from age 17 to 25, no, hadn't gained any weight back. But when I first started my intuitive eating journey, a part of the process that was actually really critical for me was to allow my body a little bit of room to grow, because I had been, in my opinion, a little bit too thin um, for a few years. Like I had lost my menstrual cycle, which is a sign that you're kind of under eating and over exercising, and I had lost that for about 6 years, which is a really long time. And I felt like I believe that dieting in a way and wanting to be so thin is part of like a patriarchal masculine culture, and so I was ready to embrace more of like my feminine side. And so I was ready to, yeah, to just like explore eating. How it really started for me was that for years, like I said, I had not eaten any carbohydrates. So I started to allow myself like to eat fruit and to eat sweet potatoes and to eat grains and to eat these things that I had not allowed myself to eat for such a long time. And in the beginning, it was kind of like, yeah, it was trial and error, but there was just like, it was, sorry, I'm not communicating this so well. We can scratch that out.
You're good. You're good. You're doing great.
Yeah, so, oh God.
You started trying these new foods. When you started trying new foods, was there any fear?
Yeah, there was some fear, but it was also actually, I remember I was living in Hawaii and I ate an orange, and it was like the most blissful experience, and I was so like happy. And fruit, I think, is such a healing food, and I had avoided fruit for so long, like almost the whole time that I lived in Hawaii. I didn't eat a single piece of fruit because of the sugar, and it was just ridiculous, honestly, like that level of control. So to let go of that and just allow myself to like enjoy fruit for the first time was really, really healing. I did gain like 20 pounds in the beginning of my intuitive eating journey. But think about it, I lost 140 pounds, and then, yeah, 9 years later, I gained 20 pounds. But then over time through intuitive eating, my body just kind of found this set point. It's like 20 pounds gained, and then I lost some of that, and it just found a set point that I've been able to stay at the last like 4 years as an intuitive eater. So
Yeah, awesome. Do you have anything else to add? Otherwise, I can drop back into asking about your cats.
my cats. I'm just trying to think about intuitive eating.
I think the cats will tie into intuitive eating as well.
They will? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's dive into some cats. So, can you see this photo here?
Aw.
That's you just said Clementine.
He's the cutest.
That's so adorable. So cats are usually calming, and I wanted to ask you how important on this whole intuitive eating journey, health journey, is it to be able to soothe your emotions?
Yeah. So I have this thing about being our best parents as adults, because I think when you're a little kid, you have someone else to help you regulate yourself and help you self-soothe. And then as you grow up as like a teenager and young adult, that's something that you have to grow into. And so, like over the last few years, the biggest thing for me has been, how do I really take care of myself? Like, how do I truly care for myself like I would as if I was my own child? Like, I act like my own mother in my life. And I think that's been really huge.
Yeah, I like that. How you act as your own mother.
Mhm.
Because you started using food.
As a replacement for the mother, which it often is.
Yeah.
There's this author, what's her name? I think it's Marianne Woodman. She talks a lot about that.
When you went to this weight loss camp and how did you, oftentimes when people restrict themselves to a 1,200 diet, cravings come up. They're more sensitive and vulnerable to these stressful emotions. They don't know how to, they're learning how to eat, but not learning how to feel. And so, how did that happen? I mean,
Well, I don't think in the beginning of my weight loss journey, I really learned how to care for myself, like I said. In a way, I mean, I learned how to physically take care of myself with food and exercise. And I think that really affected my mental health in a really positive way. I always say that food definitely affects our mental health, because I noticed such a shift from eating poorly and having a lot of anxiety and depression as a teen to, yeah, switching the way that I ate and noticing how my vibration and my heart and my life just completely changed. So, wait, what was the question again?
I guess it was, yeah, how
How do I?
how to, like a lot of women and guys, they would say, hey, screw the intuitive eating, the weight loss dieting thing worked for you.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of interesting how in this case it actually worked, but well, yeah, it worked. You lost weight and kept it off.
Yeah, well, and I also think it has to do with me being an intuitive person. And so, like, intuitive eating allowed me to move more into. So, for me, intuitive eating starts with the body and really being connected to your body. And it has a lot to do with the deepest of listening. Like, I always say that to be intuitive is to know how to truly listen in our lives. Like, intuition, psychic intuition, is to know how to truly listen. So, intuitive eating is to also know how to truly listen. And so, I've found that through really reconnecting to myself, like my capital S self, and through like psychology and through mindfulness practices and meditation and through dance and through eating and allowing myself to kind of connect to what really works for me. Yeah, I think that just works. Yeah.
Are those some of your biggest principles you'd say for intuitive eating? I hear deep listening,
Listening. Yeah.
reconnecting.
Connecting, like getting really attuned to your body. I think when we're out of our bodies, we look for food to bring us back into our bodies. And so coming from a place of embodiment for me is huge. Like I find that movement is critical for actually sustain an intuitive eating relationship.
Yeah, I got you. And letting go of all rules.
So letting go of all rules and finding what foods truly work for you, because still not every food is going to work for us. I don't eat everything and not every food works for me, but I've figured that out by trial and error and kind of just like paying attention to like how do I feel after this meal, and that's what you have to do in the beginning is like start to really closely pay attention to like enjoying this meal and how do I feel after, like how does it sit in my body. I think that's really important. But I'm also an intuitive eater who's all about that word attunement, because I think a lot of times intuitive eating can be like, let's let go of all of the rules and let's just eat whatever we want. But if you're not really listening to your body and honoring her needs, I think there's still a level of disembodiment there, and it's not going to be sustainable. If that makes sense.
It does make sense. Yeah. A lot of the times when people are beginning intuitive eating, they kind of do need a flexible meal plan, with some education around not beating yourself up with these things. If you don't follow the meal plan, it's, what happened, it's okay. Don't criticize what's going on, how to reflect and learn upon that experience.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of not following a meal plan, oftentimes people, they set off on their diets with the best of intentions, but some challenges come up inevitably, urges come up. What has been the most challenging aspect of your journey?
Yeah, so for me, when I started eating, all my binge eating went away. I haven't binged in 5 years. Since I lived in Hawaii, I haven't had any binge eating. So, like, I think for me as a really sensitive person, my biggest issue is that I don't think it's really about intuitive eating for me. I think my issue is that I'm sensitive and still have some gut health sensitivities. So, for me, it's a matter of, okay, I'll give an example. Maybe you can start here. Yeah. So an example for me with that, to answer that question, would be recently. I'm graduating from graduate school, so I'm feeling some anxiety physically, and I was noticing that it was hard for me to digest things this month, and I was kind of nervous about that because I hadn't had any digestive issues in a while. But obviously, I associate it to the stress of this big transition, and so I kind of noticed that I had this eating routine that was really working for me. And then all of a sudden, the foods that I had been accustomed to eating were not digesting as well. Like smoothies were one, kind of cold foods. So part of listening to my body and being intuitive with my body while I had like a physical discomfort was to I noticed in this process that anxiety arose because it was like, okay, I've been eating these certain foods and now they're aggravating me. So now I have to like do this new exploration. And so I moved from like anxiety in that process to recently finding that eating more warm foods right now is actually helping me digest. So again, it was a trial and error. And now I'm able to be intuitive with it, with the intention, kind of more of a focus of eating more warm foods. Does that make
Interesting. It absolutely makes sense. I love the amount of trial and error, the feedback that you are listening to, that your body gives you. You really are listening.
Yeah.
How do you handle urges when they come up?
Urges. I don't have urges. I believe I don't have urges because I'm.
That's a great answer, by the way. That is a great answer. I love it.
What's a great answer?
that you don't have them anymore.
No,
That's so good. That's amazing. Like,
there's like sustainability, right?
yeah.
Yeah. However, like if I have a craving, like for instance, like say I'm PMSing or something, just being very feminine and real. I'm craving dark chocolate or something, like I'll totally have it. Or if I want some kind of like cookie, I'll totally have it. And I think that's an important piece that I should bring up is allowance. I think is important for intuitive eating because in the years that I didn't allow myself to have any treats or anything, it expired in binge eating. And so now with allowance, I allow myself to eat chocolate or whatever I crave. And from that place of allowance, there's never an urge to overeat or to eat a whole box of cookies. It's like one cookie satisfies me because I gave myself what I wanted in the moment. And I think that's been really helpful too.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's such a huge thing is honoring that, honoring the urge, honoring the craving. You know, it's okay. Yeah. When you were weight cycling in college, you lost weight and going through these diets, and you'd go on a diet and then binge.
I
And
wasn't,
then,
though. I was never weight cycling. You said weight.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Yeah. My weight stayed the same. It was more like just going down.
Got you, yeah. And then I'm assuming you kind of, through this process, you were learning about your own body, becoming more intuitive, and your binge eating gradually tapered down. The urges tapered down.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think contributed to the tapering down? Letting go of rules, listening to your body, these types of things, or anything else in particular?
Yeah, definitely letting go of rules, definitely listening to the body, definitely allowing yourself to have what you want. And besides that, I mean,
Yeah, no, those are the basics.
basics for me at least that work. Yeah.
I, I think you're right
Also,
on
like
there.
maybe fine tuning your relationship to food, if that is makes sense. Because for instance, like when I was younger, I would want to eat like for instance, like maybe certain foods like okay let me start over when I was younger um I might like at the holidays be so excited to eat like a ton of Christmas cookies things like that but right now in my life it's so funny my mom and I we made these like gluten-free vegan chocolate cupcakes for Christmas and my mom said to me she was like you're gonna end up eating like one of these and then we're gonna throw them out and I was like no I won't one like every single day and so we made them. And then, of course, I ate one, she ate one. And then we were like, we don't really like this. Like, we'd rather have like maybe a bowl of fruit with raw honey on it. So I really value eating well, and not because I have to, but because I like to feel good in my body. To feel good in my body is like a total freedom, and I think it's so important for us. So I would say fine tuning your relationship with food and kind of fine tuning your like your senses in a way too. Like because yeah,
Absolutely.
I would say yeah.
When kind of starting to move into like some other sections of your life, psychology, food,
Yeah.
this weight loss camp taught you how to eat well or gave you some ways to physically eat better.
Mm-hmm.
And on your Instagram too, you post a lot of food pictures and so forth. What do you eat? What did you learn back then? How is what you learned back then different from what you believe now? Um, Obviously, if you're talking no rules, listen to your body, that is kind of the opposite of 1,200.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because I don't track calories or anything like that anymore. Um, yeah. So you want me to answer how do I eat now?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Okay. So within intuitive eating, I eat mostly plant-based. Plant-based was really important to me because it actually really shifted my health. I had some health stuff come up a few years ago, like chronic fatigue and things of that nature. And when I switched to a plant-based lifestyle, I healed all of those health issues, and so it just kind of seemed like it worked. And I actually at that same time was when I moved into intuitive eating. So it sounds kind of confusing in a way because I moved into intuitive eating and started eating plant-based, but it wasn't under like a strict umbrella of I have to eat a certain way. I just started to listen to my body, and what my body wanted was more plant-based foods. And underneath that, I still allowed myself whatever I wanted. So like even now, I eat fish occasionally, and if I wanted to eat meat again, I would. There's no like you have to be vegan or you can't eat honey. Like I eat honey every day. I love honey. I'm obsessed with honey. But yeah, so I eat intuitively, but mostly plant based.
Got you. If someone were to come to you and ask you questions about ending binge eating, and let's separate the two. Let's say they want to stop binge eating. What would you say to them?
What would I say to them? Well, I'd want to know what their relationship with what their relationship to food was like. Like what food represented to them, because I think food represents different things to different people. Yeah, and I'd kind of want to get at their experience of how they relate to their body and how they relate to their emotions. Yeah, and how they're caring for themselves. Because again, like I said, I think at the root of our emotional eating is that there's like self-love or self-mothering or self-care.
Yeah, and so oftentimes food is, whether it represents a parental figure or some sort of feeling of safety, it gives people a sense of safety, or at least a numbing,
Yeah,
numbs out the bad feelings.
yeah, it's a concept in Ayurveda. I studied Ayurvedic medicine, and sweet, the taste, so there's all taste factors, and sweet is associated with love. And so I feel like food is a representation of love in a way. And so if we're not receiving love, or if we're stressed out, because life can be really challenging sometimes, and food has always been there for us, and it's natural to go back. The only thing with that is that if you're going to food, there's going to be a repercussion to that over time, because you're not actually addressing what's really needed, which is to pay attention and come back to yourself and see what you really need. Because what you really need is internal, it's not external.
Absolutely. That has some stuff to do with the somatic depth psychology, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what you're studying now, right?
So, yeah, so I have a coaching business. It's called Sophia Sun Wellness. And then I also am in the process. I'm at the end, actually. I'm done in a month, which is insane. I'm so excited. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm at the end of my graduate program, and I'm becoming a licensed marriage and family therapist, but with a specialization in somatic depth psychology.
What, in a nutshell, is somatic and depth psychology?
Yeah. So somatic psychology is the understanding that everything, all emotions, get stuck in the body and in the nervous system. And so the only way to truly heal is in the present moment. Like the only way to heal trauma is in the present moment. And so to heal in the present moment, it's through the body. Does that make sense?
It makes sense to me.
Wait, can you ask me that question again, and can I just read my answer, because I feel like I wrote it really well.
Sure.
And
So the question was, what is somatic depth psychology?
hold on, okay, yeah, because I just wrote it so well, so I might as well, yeah, okay. So ask me again.
What is somatic depth psychology?
Yeah, great question. So somatic psychology is the awareness that our body holds our emotional memory, and that all healing occurs in the present moment. and that the present moment can only be experienced in the body. So for me, I found that getting into my body was imperative to healing my eating disorder and moving into intuitive eating, and also just finding liberation in my life, because I really truly believe that we're living in a culture that suppresses like so much. We suppress so much of our emotions, and then we suppress so much of our physical needs. So most of us are like sitting down all day, and if you're sitting down all day, so much energy gets stuck in your body. And if you don't have ways to like move the energy out of your nervous system, it accumulates, and there's so much discomfort that comes from that. And so I believe learning how to really like tend to your body and the nervous system is imperative to healing our relationship with food, because you get to literally be you with your own self, with your own physicality. You get to like move stuff out of you. You don't have to hold on to so much. And I think when we're holding on to so much, we're heavy and we're just, yeah, we're depressed. And so we seek comfort externally instead of recognizing that there's a lot here and a lot we have access to. And so for the somatic psychology is a lot about movement and the nervous system.
I definitely could see that. Yeah. It's kind of like yoga. Reminds me of yoga.
Yeah, because yoga helps you go within, right? And
And
it's very
movement.
centering, right? And it helps kind of like release emotions from the day. Or what's yoga for you?
Yeah. It's soothing for one. Soothing. It drops me down.
Mm-hmm.
You
Drops you.
know, like the brain waves. I imagine are like my brain waves are scattered and blah blah blah. And then whether I end the class, if I'm teaching a class, or if I'm taking a class, it's like quieter.
Quieter. That's a good way of saying it. I think you just answered it. It's about dropping down into your body.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so key to do this whole thing. It is the key to stop binge eating, um, to do this whole intuition dance.
Because then you're moving from a place of presence. You're moving from a place of being centered within yourself.
Yeah,
You know how to choose. You know how to nourish yourself and take things in, and you know how to say no. There's like a lot more awareness that stems from dropping down into yourself.
yeah. Um, Something that I teach people too is to put weight loss on the back burner. It's this paradox is you have to do a 180 in your thinking, like let go of weight loss. Because for 99.9% of the people, when they focus on weight loss, they're out of their body, they're in their head, they're thinking about the number, the scale, and they might lose 14 pounds. But because they're not connected, because it's restrictive, that pressure builds and it comes back, all the weight comes back. And so the paradox of forget about weight loss, place happiness first, deep happiness, and love yourself. Learn to love yourself, learn to respect yourself, learn to live in alignment with your values. And not everyone loses weight, they're happier, but it seems like when people do lose weight, they're doing it the right way, and it feels good.
Yeah.
More sustainable. Yeah, it's definitely it's funny that the word sustainable comes up. In many ways, I feel that sustainable is a great word, but is my breathing sustainable? No, it's just something that I do. Like, it's just I breathe. I'm not on a sustainable breathing plan. I just something I do. It's I just live my life and breathe air.
Yeah.
And so intuitive eating, it becomes it's not a plan. It's like you become it, sort of. You live it,
You live it.
and
But that
that makes it sustainable because you're becoming it. Yeah.
exactly it makes it sustainable for people who have been constantly struggling their whole lives with eating and binge eating and emotional eating or dieting and restricting for people who have been struggling in those ways. It's like they crave sustainability because they're tired of, I think, dieting and all of those things that I just named can take you so out of the present moment and take you so out of your life. It makes life so difficult. There's so much of a focus on food and so much worry and fear and just like moments of shame after binges and feeling worthless and feeling heavy and it's like that isn't sustainable. So I think sustainable is just an important word for women or men, women or men who struggle with this because it's like how can I find a way of living that I can it's not about trying, but a way of living that I can actually like find freedom in.
Yeah, finding freedom. So when you had lost all that weight, while the weight was sustainable, your weight was, you lost 140. I know you ultimately gained back another 20 or so, but were you not free?
Yeah. So I would say I was not free at all. Yeah. Like I had lost all the weight, but I was still disembodied. Like I was still disconnected. So I think that that's not freedom. I think at that time it was all about exercising, like I said, hours a day and restricting my food. And I thought about food so much. Like I thought about food all throughout the day. Like, what am I going to eat next? What am I going to eat for lunch? What am I going to eat for snack? What am I going to eat for breakfast? And like, it was just like this constant obsession that had never really gone away until I moved into intuitive eating. And so, yeah, still wasn't freedom.
Do you think you would have gained the weight back if you hadn't gotten into intuitive eating, or maybe not?
No, I definitely don't. I don't think I'll ever gain the weight back unless I like get pregnant and gain a little bit of weight because I'm having a baby, which would be totally fine. Um, but yeah, no, I don't think I would have gained the weight back if I didn't move into intuitive eating. I think more than that, I would have just stayed out of freedom and stayed stuck in cycles of like. I remember I used to stay up online just reading like so many different nutrition experts' ideas on like how to eat. Like, paleo diet or the ketogenic diet or all these like fads that were always present. And I think those would have continued to take over my life and I would have never I kind of settled into just living my life where food was just food and that's really been liberating.
Yeah, yeah. I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of someone who desperately wants to lose weight,
Mm.
and and they hear your story and they think, well, she lost weight dieting. What do you say to that person? Like,
You will lose weight dieting for sure, but it's not promised that you'll keep it off. I think a lot of people go through the like yo-yo dieting process because of that restriction component. And I think if you choose to diet but you don't have like a very strong it's kind of like a willpower because until you really move into a connection to your body in a way you're using willpower to stay on a diet. And I think if you're kind of like relying on that, it's not going to last forever because no one always like every single day has like the strongest will. Like my mom always jokes about this. People always say to her, like, "Oh, you eat so healthy. How do you do that? You must have such strong willpower." And for her and myself, it's not about that. It's about being in touch with yourself and your body. That's the sustainability factor, which you can lose weight from and keep weight off for years, like for your whole lifetime. But the dieting cycles, it's like it requires this willpower that yeah, that's not going to be always there. And so you might diet and then there's a bad day and you still haven't worked to find tools to care for yourself or to self-soothe, self-nourish yourself. And then again, that like huge binge happens. And I think that, yeah, that's why
Yeah,
eating does not work.
that's the experience for so many people. It's to me, it's astonishing, honestly, astonishing. Like it is crazy that you were able to lose weight and keep it off without learning some of these other mindsets.
Wait, say that again. Learning the dieting mindset or
Yeah, learning how to feel, how to listen, that you had done the 1,200 and lost 140 pounds
Mhm.
without without listening.
Well, yeah, big part of that though was just if you limit your calories to that much and you start exercising hours a day, like you're gonna lose weight for sure. And I have a strong will. That's the thing. I do have a strong will. So I had a strong enough will to get that accomplished, obviously. But like I said, I don't think it is will that is sustainable. I think it's a more a relationship to our body and to food that is sustainable.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Yeah, so many people that I've talked to, they have a really hard time. They say, I have a strong will. But the cycle you described a minute or two ago, where, your willpower goes down for a day and then the binge comes, uh, that's the story of their life.
Mhm.
And it's tragic.
Yeah, it can be tragic because it's just really disempowering to experience emotional eating and binge eating. I'm not saying it's wrong or bad, but it's when you experience it, it brings up a lot of shame and yeah, it brings up a lot of issues of insecurity and feeling out of control. And feeling out of control with something like our nourishment is really difficult because it's something that we're in a constant relationship with and yeah, and I think it just represents that there's an area of our lives that needs tending to because if it's in a way it's like an addiction is I think binge eating is definitely like an addiction. It has an addictive quality for sure.
Yeah. And I want to cycle back to this one question before we kind of wrap up today. We have maybe I think you already answered this, but I kind of forget. Would you recommend someone to diet to lose weight since it worked for you?
Would I recommend someone to diet to lose weight? I wouldn't be the one recommending a diet, but I could totally help someone who's very stuck in the fact that they want to choose dieting to lose weight. And I think that I could help them through dieting and intuitive eating.
Like a combination of eating healthy or well or better along with feeling.
Yeah, learning how to listen, learning how to honor yourself. Definitely.
Got you. Where can people contact you?
Yeah, so I have most of what I do is through social media, mostly Instagram. Um, and so I would say for now, just through email. So, yeah, my email. Are you gonna put it up or?
Just say it in case people are listening, but I'll also put it down below.
Okay, my email is sophiasunwellness@gmail.com.
Great. Um, Wanted to thank you so much for coming on today. You've been through so much, and I so appreciate, yeah, being willing to share. And your heart's in this. I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it was great sharing, and yeah, I hope that it can inspire some women who are still struggling on their journey wherever they're at. Because I feel like I've gone through every extreme of the journey of being overweight and having an eating disorder and then going through weight loss journey and being underweight and over exercising kind of dancing in the world of that anorexic mindset, which now I understand. So I feel like, yeah, I have an integration of both of those things, and I came to a place of balance and healing. So
Love it.